Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Faction Focus. We are joined today by Adam Camilleri, Grimnir and voice of the Votann himself to tell us all about the Leagues of Votann in the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. Adam, thanks for joining us.
My absolute pleasure to be here. I'm very excited for the prospects of the Leagues of Votann moving into the new edition. I think they have all the tools, especially in the previous edition. Getting another whole section added to the range has made quite a robust series of unit selections. I think they kind of have a tool for every occasion. Really excited to see what these three detachments bring to the fore.
So before we dive into the army, how do you think they're going to play generally?
I think they're going to play a good all-comers style, and I think because of, like I said, those new additions, they're going to have the units to do the much more high quantity of actions are going to be required. Things like the Jaegers, of course, being split into your Capricus carriers, 2 units of 5 being able to run around, and then very cheap, some of the best cheap transports in the game. In addition to one of these detachments, is really going to make your transport game go to 11. I think it's going to put them in a great place to have a very stable projection on points, and then they're going to have to take the right tools for certain matchups.
Great stuff. Well, let's dive into the detachments. We're going to start off with Armoured Trailblazers, and exactly as you were saying, this leans into the transport game of the Leagues of Votann.
So, of course, Jaegers and the Capricus carriers that already have, ability to get up the table earlier in the pre-deployment, but then all your Sagitaurs will have Scout 6 as well. There was previous versions of the Leagues of Votann in the previous edition where you would see 6 Sagitaurs in a list, which is the most amount you can take legally in your 2,000 point army, and that might be a thing again where you still might take some Capricus carriers with your Jaegers, but then having like probably 3+, probably even 5, 6 Sagitaurs all scouting up the table, I think is really cool. Sort
of leaning into the Leagues of Votann almost as the transport army, right?
Yes.
They've got a lot of tools now that help them with that kind of game.
Absolutely, and these are transports on the Sagitaurs that don't just hold guys. They have legitimate firepower as well, which is very exciting, especially seeing if you wanted to run them as like a spearhead or a nugget of Sagitaurs, you could really go into a flank very hard with their firepower.
Yeah. Well, looking at the other things that this detachment brings, you have an enhancement which is called Optimized Attack Lines. This is an upgrade that you can give to Sagitaurs, to one of the unit of Sagitaurs, and the unit gets mobile.
I love this. So the way this works in my brain is that's a unit that has some berserkers inside of it, possibly with a named character that supports berserkers, and then that one scouts, and then the first turn advances in a straight line into the most aggressive position to attack your opponent in the middle of the table, and then you just stage up there behind a wall, holding the berserkers and making your opponent figure it out.
Mobile effectively means that you could ignore terrain as you move. So if there's a wall or something in the way, normally you'd have to kind of navigate around it. You can just basically bulldoze all the way through it and pop out the other side.
Yep, and of course you can roll in advance on that move. You've already moved 6 inches with your scout, you go straight in. The reason I'm talking about Jaegers so much is because having infiltrate, meaning that you can hold space to activate the scout. Because what you don't want to have is no infiltrating units, and then your opponent infiltrates and blocks off the scout moves on the Sagitaurs, and then you don't get to do it.
It's all about a kind of combined arms approach.
Yes, exactly right. So I still think you need the Jaegers in this detachment so that your Sagitaurs get to use this awesome detachment ability.
Giving you another tool in the toolbox for your Sagitaur.
This is huge.
You have a stratagem which I don't think we've seen a stratagem that works quite like this before, but it's called Outflanking Armor, and basically allows 2 Sagitaur to come on in your opponent's movement phase.
So this is not rapid ingress. This is 1 CP rapid ingress to Sagitaur specifically. And you can still use rapid ingress if you wanted to. So you could have 3 units arriving from reserve in your opponent's turn, meaning you can effectively null deploy and then really change, at the drop of a hat, change the outlook of the game.
Or entirely swing a flank.
Correct.
You could commit heavily to the center. Late game, you could kind of very aggressively go for the enemy deployment zone. Loads of options on the table. Just having this as a tool will make your opponent
play differently.
Think very carefully about all of their deployments.
I love it so much. The only thing you're giving up is the fact that Sagitaurs scout 6, and to use this ability on them, they have to not be on the table. So you're giving up.
Well,
scout.
you've got 6 of them. We decided already. Didn't
we already said you have to have 6.
It's fine.
Yeah. But what I mean is that's the trade-off here, which I like. It's good. This is a very powerful ability, but you're trading your detachment ability to do this. But what it is also extremely powerful. So this is the way, if you had to get away without having the Jaegers or the infiltrate, and you played against somebody who does infiltrate and you don't, or they win the roll-off. Well, I guess you just don't deploy 2 of them, put them in reserve, and make sure you can keep doing this consistently and make it a pressure point.
The next detachment we're going to look at is the Hearthguard Covenant. This is a detachment effectively that makes your characters and your elite units better.
Exactly right. So the Avatars of the Ancestors is a detachment what's going to affect your Karl, Einherjar Champions, Einherjar Hearthguard, Uther the Destined, and they're all going to get reroll 1s to wound on their ranged attacks when they target something within 9 inches.
So very good at kind of either deep striking in or moving forward with the transport and then just kicking an enemy unit off an objective or a key point on the battlefield.
Exactly right. So people who are familiar with the Hearthband detachment as it exists in the current edition or the edition we're just leaving will be pretty familiar with how this one's going to be structured. And it's just going to keep doing what it's been doing. And it's been one of the most powerful detachments or ways to play Votann for the last couple of months.
Yeah. And now obviously you can combine this with other detachments so you can have this as well as some of the other things we've been talking about.
Because in the previous design space, you would ostensibly take your 3 units of Hearthguard and their associated characters, and they would get juiced up to the max by the
nothing else in your army benefits.
And nothing else would significantly benefit from those rules. All the stratagems were simply tied in just to those units. But now this is only part of the package now, part of the design structure for your detachment and the expenditure of your detachment points. So this is really cool.
Well, let's have a look at some of the enhancements and the stratagem. The first one we're going to look at is the High Karl. This effectively allows one of your character units to fight on death.
Yeah, so when this unit has not been selected to fight in this phase, roll a d6 for every unit that gets removed in the fight phase, and on a 4+ they'll fight on death. This is a great ability.
Yeah, so that's for the whole unit as well. It's
Yes,
not
it is.
just for the character. So you're talking probably about your elite units dropping in. They're going to unleash the firepower with your detachment special rule. Then they're either going to charge in or they're going to take a charge to the enemy. And this lets them go down swinging, basically.
Exactly right. And take a pound of flesh on the way out. I think it's a great enhancement.
Looking at the stratagems, we've got Fury of the Hearth. This is an ability that makes your Einherjar Hearthguard, have +1 strength, and if they use a yield point, also have sustained hits.
Yeah, this is really good, and I believe a similar version of this was existing in the previous detachment. But +1 strength on the strength bands of the existing damage output, the range output of the Hearthguard unit, that being the Plasma option or the Volkite. Both of those really benefit from this. I think more so the Plasma will benefit from the strength more than the Volkite, but the Volkite really likes the sustained hits because it generates...
You're fishing for more devastating, attacks, right? You want devastating wounds.
You want more chances to get the devastating wounds, which is also going to pay off when you're shooting at a unit within 9 inches where you get the real 1s to wound.
Yeah, so some excellent little combos there. And then last up, you've got Materialization Matrices. This basically allows you to deep strike those units nice and close to the enemy. You
know it, you love it. Your Terminator equivalents, your Hearthguard, are going to be able to arrive 6 inches away from the opponent. Not going to be able to clear a charge, pretty fair, but they're going to get right up into the action and become a major problem very quickly.
And this is really useful in this edition because some of those objectives are now quite large. Right? They are more than 6 inches across. So you have the potential of something like an enemy unit that's just towed into an objective, a big piece of terrain. You can drop in on top of the objective, still shoot them, and basically claim it.
Yeah, fantastic. Great point, Eddie.
Last up, we have the detachment Farseekers. This is one that works with the Hernkyn and gives them a bunch of great bonuses. This combos nicely with some of the other abilities and gives one of the kind of least synergistic bits of the army some great combos. Yeah,
so this is getting your utility units, your Pioneer bikes, your Jaegers, and really bringing them and incentivizing them. This is one of the ones that I think will see the most play day one, as I've mentioned in some of these other faction focuses, because this is a bunch of utility units you are already taking in so many different lists. Your Hernkyn units, your Pioneers, these are mainstays, and Votann players have been able to use them really well and get great experience, and they become very powerful tools. So your friendly Hernkyn units ranged attacks that target a unit within 12 inches have +1 to hit rolls. So that means if you're shooting a target that's in cover, you negate cover. And if you're not, even if they're not in cover, you still get a bonus within 12 inches.
Yep. Also, playing into the way that this army works, you've got some enhancements and some stratagems. The enhancement, the first one we'll look at, is Pan-Spectral Lock-Ons. This basically allows a Pioneer unit to make enemy units more visible for the rest of your army.
Yeah, exactly right. So in your shooting phase, you can select one visible enemy unit within 12 of this unit. That enemy unit is spotted, and while it's spotted, you'll get +3 detection range against them. So going, if no other modifiers, going from 15 to 18 inches.
Yeah, so your Pioneer is one of your fastest units. They can zip up the board, spot the enemy unit, bring the rest of the firepower to bear. Most of your Leagues of Votann firepower tends to be in the sort of 24-inch range. So by the time you've got a kind of +3 onto that, most of your army will probably be able to bring their firepower
to be able to move
bear.
into that 18-inch range. Exactly right. And this works really well on Pioneers specifically because, of course, they move off the table at the end of your opponent's turn. They come back on the table, and then you can position yourself perfectly to not only be within 12 for your personal +1 to hit, you also be getting that detection range off as well.
Yeah, lots of the abilities we've been looking at here for the Leagues of Votann give them some quite devastating, very short-range firepower.
Yes.
And the last stratagem we've got to talk to you about is Scornful Analysis, which effectively allows you to remove the cover save from the enemy. So a lot of the League of Votann play is about pushing enemy units off objectives with a torrent of very short-range firepower.
Another thing that this keys off Hernkyn units specifically, and essentially that unit will just select an enemy unit that's visible within 12, and the entire rest of your army will ignore that model's cover, the cover save of that unit. Yeah, they will get tagged with ignores cover for the entire rest of your army. Yeah. It's actually quite awesome.
So you could imagine, for example, if you combat it with the rest of this force,
yes,
you could have that unit move forward, scout, spot that enemy unit. You could deep strike in some of your heavy hitters. You could outflank some of your Sagitaurs. You could bring a huge amount of firepower to bear on an enemy unit that previously had none of your army nearby.
Exactly.
Remove it. I thought it was safe in cover. That goes away. You could just remove it, claim that objective for yourself.
You're taking a bunch of units that you're already incentivized to take for Leagues of Votann generals and just making them better, just adding extra dynamics onto your utility pieces. I think this is a fantastic detachment.
Brilliant. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your expertise and thoughts. We'll be back very soon with more Warhammer 40,000 faction focus.